When we bought this property, this old aircraft hangar definitely had like a couple little problems. A good portion of the roof had blown off. It was totally water damaged. There were all kinds of critters and creatures and stuff in here, leaving their carcasses everywhere. Piles of raccoon poop, rotten posts. But one thing I just haven't gotten to yet is the fact that all over this structure, everywhere, it is literally full of holes. It's got holes on the sides, holes on the roof. So this entire video, as far as I'm concerned, is about patching the holes in the building. All right, let me just say, like right off the bat, as I'm digging into these holes, that I didn't really have a super tight plan on how I was gonna do all these patches. You know, like I'm not like someone who's patched a million hole barns before, and I just walked up to this thing and was like, oh, I'm gonna apply my patch method A12 or, you know, whatever. We just got to agree to not really look too deep in this building because it's, like everywhere you look, it's like a little skanky. All right, so got like a little quarry of this stuff since so much blew off the roof. Part of me kind of wanted to just goop a bunch of steel and stick it over the holes and just leave it at that. And you know, that would probably be fine, but it kind of relies on the goop, you know, like the longevity of the goop. And from what I've seen over the years, goop don't last forever. I kind of want a sticker on my truck or something that says that. Goop don't last forever. But I did end up using goop on these patches. What I did with most of them, you can see because you're looking at me doing it. But what I did with most of them, not every one of them, was kind of like cut a slit, cut a hole, whatever, cut something in the side of the pole barn above the hole, and kind of slid my patch in there, at least an inch or two, just thinking that the water's gonna kind of come down and won't be able to infiltrate that compromised piece of steel because my patch is up under there, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's what I was thinking. But the thing about my slits is that they all have these little holes on the sides, over on each little end, you know, it's like it's not perfect. So at those little hole points, I use goop, and then I kind of use some more goop because why not use some more goop? Also, on the topic of rivets, I don't know if there's such a thing as like a waterproof rivet, but these are not them. These are regular old rivets, and they end up just not looking waterproof at all. Like I don't have a gasket on there or anything, so I gooped all the rivets. So the dang patches rely on goop in the end. Not 100%, but some percentage of reliance on goop is definitely going down. All right, let me digress into a little story which will explain something about this repair action on this pole barn. It's a digression, but you know, that's not like criminal or anything. Okay, that digression is that Joe, my buddy Joe and I, we've been talking about buying a lot in town, like a town lot, and building a house on it. And we talk about a lot of stuff, and it's not necessarily going to happen. I think at one point we talked about canoeing up the Mississippi or down it or something, and we have not done that. We haven't even gotten close to doing that. But anyway, we've been talking a lot about getting a lot, like an empty lot in town. And the other day, he ran into somebody, and they were like, oh, I've got a lot. So we went out there and we checked it out. Now, it was not an abandoned lot. It was like a lot with a house on it. Busted old house. Just oh, the worst, most rundown, termite-eaten, skankified, horrible house you've ever seen. And we're knocking around this thing, looking at the termite damage and the compromised foundation, like all that kind of stuff. And the reason we were there is because, you know, we were thinking about building on the site and not rehabbing this house at all. Instead, just possibly either with this guy or just the two of us, scrape the house, start over, new foundation, new house. But the question came up looking at this house. I mean, this thing, not only was it termites that had wrecked out this house and water damage and stuff, but this dude had never cleaned. He was like a heavy duty smoker, so the walls were all stained out. It was just gross. You know, like the sink was like the original sink from 1920, and it was just, it looked like he'd been washing like tar and dead fish at the same time in that sink for like 50 years or something. It was so bad. So the question that was banging around my head while we were walking through this skanked out house, and we really shouldn't have even been in that house because all we were gonna do if we got this lot was just push it over. But anyway, the question that was banging around my head when I was in that skanked out house was, how did this dude let this place go so far and so long and so badly. You know, like, you know what it is to let something go. You know, you haven't cleaned your car in a while, or you know, there's like a cut on your hand that's starting to look a little bit bad or whatever. But you don't let that cut on your hand go gangrenous. You don't let it just totally get eaten by maggots and stuff before you're like, oh, I gotta take care of that. You know, you don't let it go that long. And if your car's dirty, you know, you at some point you clean the dang thing. Like, you're gonna go pick up grandma, so you're like, I'm gonna get the car vacuumed before grandma gets in there, and then it's all good. You're back to square one. Like, you have not let it go, you're back to basics. Well, this dang aircraft hangar right here, this bad boy, somebody, and in fact, a series of somebodies who owned this property before us, they just let this thing go, you know? They would punch a hole in the side of the building and be like, well, there's another hole, another place for water to come in, whatever. You know, the roof had blown off, it was leaking, the doors were broken, it was full of skanked out animals and dead carcasses and stuff, and there was no obvious attention to care on the building. I'm not saying no one had ever done anything. Like, apparently the local lore, like from the neighbors, is that the doors have been replaced twice. Like, originally there was kind of like a big side-to-side kind of door in the front of the building. Then there was like a bad hangar door. Now there's this good, quote-unquote, good hangar door. So it's not like no one's ever done anything. But these holes all over this building, and I mean every side of this building, all 6, 7, 8, 9 sides of this building, they all have holes. Like, obvious things that need to be fixed. All you gotta do is patch it. All you gotta do is patch that hole. There just wasn't like a recognition at some point that there was a problem out here, and it was let go. It was just totally let go. All right, now, I don't remember ever saying, I'm gonna make this whole building real pretty. But despite the fact that it's still lacking a corner over here, it's a little bit tuned up, got the drip edge going. These patches, yeah, I'm curious what you think, you know? I think a little better than it was. And I did goop a few little just mini holes and stuff. And then these guys over here, they're sort of undercover, only that leaks. I mean, you can see daylight through just so many spots. But first, walls. I got 3 or 4 more of them. I mean, what is this? The building looks pretty sweet to me, like it's got potential, and all I'm really trying to do is turn the tide on it, you know? Bring it back to static, like it's not just totally degrading on a daily basis. Bring it back to some kind of level ground, static plateau, whatever you want to call it, just that this dang thing isn't going downhill anymore. This side is not too terribly hideous. There's some rips and stuff, but not the big holes that were on the other side. But if you're wondering how far I'm gonna take it, you know, like, am I gonna go all the way to the level of insulation? You know, get this thing fully insulated so I can cool it in the summer and heat it in the winter. Am I gonna add on to it? Am I gonna blow out parts of the structure and kind of do different stuff? I haven't fully decided about that. Like when I look around, I don't feel like it's really the kind of building I want to insulate and try to fight the cold with. But at the same time, dude, if you have done work in a shop in central Illinois in the middle of winter with no heat, no insulation of any kind, the wind blowing through there, you know what it's like to have just totally frozen hands and just be miserable the whole day. So there's part of me that's still entertaining that idea. But what I'm not gonna do is what I saw this dude do the other day. I was just kind of stumbling around this video platform they call YouTube, and I was looking at this video of this dude who bought an old boat, or found an old boat. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the channel or whatever, maybe you've seen it, but he gets this old boat, and I'm talking like 1700s old, like some old sailboat, all wood and everything. Appearances to the contrary, this side is pretty much tuned up. I came through and just screwed in almost everything on this sliding door because it was all wibble-wobble-tastic. And did you know that back in the day, like the 70s or whatever, that piece of trim right there was actually cobbled together out of a gutter. That's like a gutter upside down, twisted around. Oh, I got one more I gotta do something with. So only really a couple bigger patches, 1, 2, 3 on this side. Otherwise just little stuff. But the next side, just like someone even worse than me was driving through here with like a tractor and stuff. So most of the holes, not that one, are down low. Just all kinds of, yeah, just holes and more holes. But again, mainly down low. And I just want to know, like, what actually happened here? Entry wound or the exit wound? Maybe the fork went in here and then So he starts this whole project of fixing up the boat. And you know, I figure he's gonna like replace some rotten wood, goop a few things, you know, maybe rebuild some stuff. But what this dude does, and this is kind of like remarkable, but at the same time, I am not going there. Like, I am here publicly stating I am not doing this with this building. What he does is in effect replaces every single piece of wood on that boat. Like, the keel's messed up, the dude builds a new keel, like bends the wood, reshapes it and everything. All the staves are funky and screwed up, replaces all the staves, all the ribs, everything. By the time he's done, and I think the last video I saw of his, he was actually out sailing this thing, like from Canada down to San Francisco. He's out on this boat. It is 100%. I'm not exaggerating. Or maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. Let's just say 98.6%. 98.6%. It is a new boat. It is not the old boat. It is a replica, but the dude has replaced like everything. And I'm not doing that with this building. I'm just not looking to put new siding on it, reframe it, replace all the posts, all that stuff. Like, it's not that I'm against new buildings. I've built stuff from scratch. Like, I'm not against that. But this building, I just kind of like the old funkified nature of it. In some ways, I'm just gonna admit this. I'm just gonna put it out there. In some ways, I actually prefer these walls, these exterior walls, all patched up looking, all, you know, repaired and stuff, to looking brand new. I even kind of like that rusty patina, but I am gonna put some paint on the outside to stop the rust. But I am not replacing every piece of metal and everything on this building. It's just not happening. All right, not too holy in this area. There were like a couple little guys I just drilled in and riveted and gooped. And then we get into the double pronger paint, and then whatever happened there. But I also just kind of like appreciate the integrity of the old funkified nature of this hangar. It was built in 1973, and I just don't want to like totally erase that fact. Now, I often tell myself, you gotta finish one job before you start the next. But this was just bugging me. This door, it just didn't have any flashing, like no J channel around it. So it's just been like a water mess, but it doesn't look too bad. It might be kind of newish, new-esque. And you know, it's a steel door and stuff, so I think it really just needs like a reinstall. But before that, I'll get back to the previously scheduled job. It needs like a wee bit of goop on top and in the corners and stuff, just because there were previous holes. Previous holes is like the theme of today's job. Virginia, Portland, Oregon. Well, she means like take a cruise to Thailand, Denver. Watch out. You could go on the other end. Okay, shove it. At the Lake of the Woods, and my freaking shoulders are so sore. The minorly weird thing about this, in addition to everything else, is that my roller for my door of death kind of comes down like right here next to this trim. So I'm just gonna kind of squish it over a little bit, give the roller a chance not to wreck it. Alright, so with this corners trimmed up, and I think actually looking pretty good, like for this building. There's also like the patchwork. Got the door reinstalled, still need, I'm just kind of thinking like some kind of little porch or awning or something. Oh, I also built like a little storage shelf in here. Just a way to make the hoard look like it's like less. I was kind of experimenting with some horrible silver spray paint back here. That's not right. I gotta like sand the rust down and use some proper gray spray paint. And then the door, which is pretty much working out. Still need a handle and a good way to lock it closed. Anyway, thanks for checking out this installment on my aircraft hangar refurbish fix-up thing that I'm doing. There are without a doubt some how-to videos on the interwebs you could look at for, you know, step-by-step instructions how to do stuff. This is just the story of how I did it. Appreciate you checking it out. And I just noticed that this dang door is open. Is it not latching?